start with our guest speaker, Dee Dee Von Smouse. She is co-founder of Plant a Million Corals. They have a location down in Summerlin Key. I've actually got to work there, which was fantastic. Such a great experience. You know, I just wanted to say to all of you here, if any of you are interested in this work, if you're interested in finding out more, run, don't walk, and get on one of our trips, because it will change the way you see the ocean. It'll change the way you see corals, and it'll change your life, and you'll want to go back. And I cannot wait till this summer when I get down to work with Plant a Million Corals and also with I.CARE. It's just a fantastic experience. It changes the way your perspective, it changes your diving, everything. So thank you. You can take it away, Dee Dee. Thanks so much for being here.
So much for having me. Hi. Yeah, like they said, my name's Dee Dee Von Smouse. I am one of the co-founders of the Plant a Million Corals Foundation here in Summerlin Key of the Florida Keys. And I'm going to go ahead and I will share my screen. Here we go. Are we seeing this?
Yes, we are. Yes. Looks great.
All right, great. So like I said, I'm with the Plant a Million Corals Foundation. We were founded in 2019 by Dr. David Vaughn, myself and his wife. They happen to also be my parents. And really in a reaction to seeing all the great scientific work that's been going on, not just here in the Florida Keys, but around the world, but really wanting to put those efforts into practical application on a scalable level. And why is that important? So as we know, coral reefs are extremely important, but unfortunately, 50% of our corals are already lost globally. Now that isn't a global average. In some areas, it is much higher. Some areas are much more fortunate. Here in the Florida Keys, the summer of 2023 dealt us a real terrible blow with our corals. But the good news is that there's hope. Coral restoration and active coral restoration is a way that scientists and communities and practitioners are able to put action into solutions. So many people see these photos and they think they're in the wrong direction. They see the luscious, beautiful coral reef and think that's our before photo, but fortunately, that is actually our after photo. These photos were taken from the same location in Belize with a partner organization called Fragments of Hope. And after working with Dr. Vaughn and their practitioners and community, we were able to completely regenerate and restore this area of the coral reef. You can see the beautiful, not only the beautiful elkhorn corals, but also some of the soft corals. When you stick your head in the water there, you get to hear those beautiful clicking sounds of the marine invertebrates and everything else that is now living in this healthy reef system. Now, why are we putting all this effort into coral reefs? There are many reasons why corals are important. As divers, we all know we get such joy from being underwater and from working with corals and working at coral reefs and visiting coral reefs. But not only that, they're important to the rest of the world as well. Locations like communities like the Florida Keys depend on coral reefs, not only for our economy. It's an 8.5 billion asset here in Florida. 500 million people worldwide depend on coral reefs for not just their economy, but also for sustenance, for food, and tourism. But we literally can't live where we are and be where we are without the protection that healthy coral reefs provide. You can see that every day when you're looking at reef reports, and they talk about outside the reef, different depths and wave action versus inside the reef wave action. We were able to see that firsthand here in the Florida Keys in 2017 when we had Hurricane Irma come through. NOAA buoys recorded storm surges of over 30 feet outside our barrier reef and inside the reef. And what we were impacted with within our home and community was between 6 and 8 feet. And so just to be able to see how that difference is and that amount of protection is extremely important. We're starting to see that being recognized around the world. Insurance companies are now starting pilot programs where they're investing in coral reef restoration as a way to prevent damage with these storms. So we're really starting to see the world kind of wake up to the fact that coral reefs, even though they're kind of out of our view because they are underwater, are what really protects not only the beautiful biodiversity that we need, but also our investments in our communities. And around the world, it's a $36 billion industry with tourism. So that's where Plant a Million Corals comes in. So our vision at Plant a Million Corals Foundation is to turn the tide of our oceans by saving our coral reefs. And we have a very long mission statement, but for the importance of time, I'm going to distill that down to 3 things. Our goals, and if you've ever heard Dr. Vaughn talk, he always speaks in 3 things. Our goals are to make coral restoration affordable, accessible, and scalable. Now, those sound like very strange words, so I'll break that down. We make coral restoration affordable by using land-based nurseries. Our land-based program is an easy way to reduce costs and also work every day. We're not limited by weather, by boat time, dive time, and things like that. We are also not limited with the health of our corals that we're growing by what's going on in the environment around us. And so we can maintain certain standards of care with our land-based nurseries by being able to control our water temperature, our water quality, things like that. We make coral restoration accessible, again, by being land-based. We don't, for our nursery husbandry, we are able to train people even if they don't have or feel comfortable within water, don't have dive training, things like that. And then we also can make it accessible by providing large-scale training. We also provide lots of technology. So with technology transfer, we use methods of technology like microfragmentation, which was invented by Dr. Vaughn. And we train that to people on a professional level. And then scalable. With these things now being affordable and accessible, we can do coral restoration at a large scale. And we can provide corals not only to our surrounding areas, but to other organizations. So these are some of the ways that I mentioned. We do have coral restoration units, which is a mobile lab, which is customized for each receiving organization to provide a transportable version of a land-based nursery when they may not already have that technology. We provide hands-on training workshops to teach people how to do coral restoration at the professional level. And then again, at Summerlin Farms, we're going to be providing lots of corals, not only to our location, but to other organizations as well. This was really driven home by a quote by Dr. Vaughn saying that people think we've ruined this planet with technology, but with technology, we can bring it back. So that technology I talk about is microfragmentation. This was discovered by Dr. Vaughn back when he was the executive director at Moat Marine Lab, here also located here on Summerlin Key, and it was discovered actually by accident. He's learned now that we can cut coral into very small pieces, as little as 3 or 4 polyps, which stimulates a rapid healing growth, which can range from 25 to 40 times faster than normally seen, depending on the species. And with this rapid growth, these corals have actually been seen to reach sexual maturity in as little as 5 years, and now we've started seeing it as little as 14 months. Wow. We do that by actually fusing corals together. So you can see with the microfragmentation photo, each one of those circles is about the size of a quarter. And so these pieces can be down to the size of a centimeter by a centimeter, depending on the species and the size of each individual polyp. Within 6 months, usually those plugs are that same size. Since we're now working with tiles as well as plugs, will grow, and then they'll either be ready to be outplanted at that size. We're also doing some really neat things at our facility where we're calling it in-planting, where we're actually planting corals onto artificial coral heads within our tanks. And those will be what we intend to outplant in the future. By maintaining corals from the same genotype, as in from the same original coral, and fusing them together, they can actually grow to the size of a medium to large coral head. So here you can see our artificial coral heads in our tanks. Sorry, that's my dog. And where we're actually planting onto those coral heads. And then in as little as 14 months, they will fuse together. And at that size, they've reached the size of what would be a sexually mature coral. And we've had them spawn in our tanks twice now. And we're looking forward to our 3rd summer of that.
Wow.
So this is all happening at Summerlin Farms. We are a completely off-the-grid facility here. It is an 8-acre property. 4 of those acres have been donated for our long-term use. We are currently absolutely full at capacity for our corals, which means we are now in our new construction phase. We have just finished the design and are ordering the pieces and parts for our next expansion, which will add an additional 100,000 coral capacity to our facility, an additional 70 tanks. And we're not stopping there. We have already designed our 3rd expansion, which will be shortly to follow. This facility, like I said, it's completely off the grid. Everything is run on solar power. We are also utilizing dry composting toilets for our restrooms. We reclaim we use reclaimed rainwater for all of our freshwater hygiene needs and bring in potable water every day. We are also working with local fishermen in collecting the discarded concrete slabs from collected ghost traps from the crab and lobster industry, and using that substrate or that concrete ground for an additive to our substrate, so that we're recycling and permanently sequestering that discarded concrete as well. Our facility is not only a production facility, but we also provide professional training for coral practitioners here. You can see we have quite an array of visitors with our lovely resident key deer. We are also growing mangroves on our site for coastline restoration. We partner with a wonderful organization called Coast Love, who helps us with our mangrove cultivation and maintaining our mangrove nursery beds. The community is welcomed in on a daily basis to collect and provide us with red mangrove propagules, as well as to tour our center. So here's a quick little tour of what we're looking now, and is an excellent time. We announced on our Earth Day on Tuesday that we have officially reached 50,000 corals. So we are extremely excited with that milestone. To put this into perspective, like I said, our organization began in 2019. However, we weren't growing corals at this facility until February of 2023. And so we have been, our main limiting factor has been space and tanks. You can see we have 2 different styles of tanks. Those clear acrylic tanks are ones of our own design that we made with a grant from 11th Hour Racing, and are just another way that we're providing and creating and innovating here at Summerlin Farms. So let me see. There we go. So we also build coral restoration units. These are customized and transportable land-based nurseries. In these photos, you can see 3 of the ones that we've designed. We have now finished 5 designs. The one for Puerto Rico is completely recirculating and will be deployed this summer. In fact, we're really excited that they broke ground on their site finally this Earth Day. And the top right photo was the system that we delivered to a high-end resort in the Maldives, Suniva Fushi. And you can see their array of 30 tanks that they're using coral restoration, not only to restore and improve their house reefs at their resort, but also as an outreach program to the local community as well as their guests. Each unit is designed for the specific needs of the receiving organization. I mentioned that Puerto Rico is actually going to be completely recirculating. The Maldives, they returned the shipping container back to us because that didn't really fit in with their high-end resort aesthetic. And then here you can see one, and if you follow coral restoration groups, you'll see some very visible young men and women from the coral gardeners in French Polynesia. They were actually the recipients of our first deployed coral restoration unit. This one has now reached its secondary location in Thailand to help jumpstart their program there. So as you can see, these are really developing into a great network of not just coral practitioners, but when they're a test ground for these products that we produce, and we're able to connect and provide assistance, workshops, training, as well as troubleshooting in perpetuity with these programs. We also just, and it's currently shipping along its way with a partner in Jordan. So we are really hoping to extend our knowledge all over the world. Speaking of which, we also provide coral restoration workshops approximately 3 times a year. We train practitioners from all over the world how to do coral restoration at a professional level. Usually 2 of those workshops are here in the Florida Keys, and then at least 1 is conducted abroad. Our most recent was done with 5 partner organizations, but organized by Nature Seychelles and was done at their facility. We trained, I believe, 15 students there. And we now have a network of over 100 trained practitioners specifically through the Plant a Million Corals workshop program. We're extremely proud of all of our graduates. Many have gone on to either start their own organizations. You can see Marissa Meyer of the Coral Nursery of Puerto Rico in one of those photos. Several have gone on to start projects in Turks and Caicos, Puerto Rico, Mexico, and many have been recognized on the international level. So we're extremely proud of that. So that really brings my presentation to a conclusion of what we do. And now we talk about how you can support coral restoration. I'm very excited about seeing some of you this summer with your trip down here to the Florida Keys. If you in your professional realm are looking to partner, we partner with corporate sponsors. We do team building exercises with organizations and companies. But the biggest way that you can support coral restoration is to share our story. You know, presentations like this, I'm happy to make to other organizations as well. But please tell your friends and family about Plant a Million Corals, but more importantly about coral restoration and coral reefs. Talk about how they're important to not just people that love to be underwater and love to be on the water, but to people that live, you know, in St. Louis, Missouri, and you know, we always say Kansas, because the coral reefs affect their lives as well. And by sharing our story, you can become a coral advocate. And we always like to say we're not just planting corals, but we're planting coral warriors. So with your help, we can plant 1 million corals and restore reefs within our lifetime. Here's my contact information. If I'll also provide that, Michael has that information as well, and I heartily hope that he shares that with you all. And then here's just a little video that I made for Earth Day to share our 50,000 coral achievement with a little bit of perspective on how quickly we're doing this. And then just a little proud moment as Dr. Vaughn's daughter as well. You can see a statue that has been placed on the Great Barrier Reef, and he is one of the 8 ocean sentinels that are now showing and protecting the Great Barrier Reef and representing coral restoration science there.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much, DG. Really appreciate all this information, and I know everyone on the call does. I got to work with you and your father. He's such a great teacher, and it was a privilege to do that, and can't wait to get back this summer to do some more. One other thing that I wanted to point out here for the divers on the call is Dr. Vaughn wrote a very amazing book called The Secret Life of Corals. It's a terrific read. It's he tells stories in the book, and it really filled in a lot of gaps for me as far as knowledge about corals, even after doing the work. And so it's available all over the place online. You can get copies of it, and I've shared this book with several people now, and it's really a great read. So pick it up and give it a go. It's a great book. And now we can move from this great talk to another one with Dr. Kylie Smith of I.CARE. Again, ADFC divers have worked with I.CARE now for several years, and it's always a privilege to work with them and get down to the Keys and help with this restoration work. So Dr. Kylie Smith is co-founder of I.CARE. They are located in Islamorada, and I'm going to let you take it away. Thanks so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Dee Dee, great talk. Really enjoyed getting to learn more about Plantain corals. Can everyone see my presentation okay before I just start running through? Cool. See some nods. Awesome. So my name is Kylie Smith, and I'm one of the co-founders of I.CARE. I have to acknowledge Michael Goldberg. I'm sure a lot of you, if you've been diving with us, has seen him around. He's my other co-founder, but he could not be here today. But here at I.CARE, we do things a little bit differently. So we are a coral restoration practitioner, but we are taking a community-wide approach. And I love the term community because it applies to so much of what we're doing, both in the reef community and what we're restoring, but also how we're doing it. So we are working with recreational divers and members of our community to rebuild the reef. And let me see if I can, perfect. So if you've been diving in the Florida Keys, you've probably seen some of the amazing fish life that we have. You go to some place like Alligator Reef, which is an iconic reef here in Islamorada. We have turtles, sharks, hundreds of different fish species that you can jump in and see on any day. It's absolutely incredible. But if you really focus on what's going on behind the fish and you're looking at the reef structure, we really don't have those live coral and even the sponge communities that we did in the past. And so as Dee Dee mentioned, corals are incredibly important. They support up to 25% of all marine organisms at some point throughout their life cycle. And so these corals are providing structural complexity that can serve as nursery habitat or protection from predators for many of those organisms. They can also be direct food resources for a lot of those marine creatures. And of course, they also help support human populations by supporting economies throughout the world, and our reefs absorb energy from storms that help protect our homes and businesses here in the Florida Keys and in other coastal areas. And so one thing that we were noticing is that this decline in coral cover was happening really, really quickly. So this is a mountainous star coral on Alligator Reef in 2015, and this is that same coral head in 2019. So in just a short amount of time, you can see the major difference in the loss of coral cover. But one thing that really struck us is people were still coming, they were still diving, they were jumping in and seeing this dead coral head and going, wow, that's beautiful. And so we realized that there's a huge education piece missing. And so that's a big part of what we do here at I.CARE is educating the public about what a healthy coral reef should look like. And so here at I.CARE, we partner with local dive shops, and we train recreational divers in everything they need to know to be able to be a part of the restoration solution. So they will come to our facility. They take a quick course given by our interns where they get to learn about everything they need to about corals. Why are they important? What challenges are they facing? What science is behind the corals that we're bringing in for the restoration? And then they do a hands-on demo with all the tools. They get to practice, ask questions about what they're going to do on the dive, and then we take them diving. And this has been a great way to get both visitors and locals involved in what it is that we're doing. And so I have a quick video, kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what this looks like. So Key Dives is one of our partnering dive shops. It's actually where Mike Goldberg, my co-founder, he's the owner. We started out with, again, that demonstration with all of our divers, show them what it is that they're going to be doing, and then we go out onto the reef. And I'll talk here in just a little bit about some of the different coral species and methodologies that we've used over the last several years. But we always get to see really curious creatures that like to come up and check out what we're doing. We make a lot of noise whenever we're hammering underwater. But it has been a really, really awesome way to get divers involved in coral restoration. And so we are running trips pretty much every week, weather depending. We partner with 3 main dive shops. So we've actually started working in Key Largo with a new partner, Amore Divers. And so we dive with them the 1st and 3rd Saturday of the month, the 2nd and 4th Saturday with Key Dives, and the 3rd Sunday of every month with Conquer Public Divers. Our trainings are now at our brand new I.CARE facility. We are in the process of building out this as a full education center where anybody can come in and learn about coral restoration. We're also filming for a virtual reality experience here over the next 2 weeks. So people will be able to come in and go on a virtual dive with us. So we're really excited about this new facility in Islamorada. But we also expand our efforts into more than just putting the corals down. We run trips where our divers can come out and help do maintenance on the corals that we've put down. They help by scrubbing algae, resecuring any of our corals that have come loose over the last several months to years. We'll do night dives where we go out and we will remove predators like fireworms. That's what you're seeing here in the bottom picture here. And we also will provide experiences where our divers can monitor our transplants. Not a whole lot of people have been excited about collecting data. So it's mostly done by our team, but we're always willing to teach anybody who's wanting to learn. And we also monitor our reef communities. So we wanted to get an idea of how our restoration efforts were influencing our invertebrate community, what we were seeing in terms of natural recruitment or more corals coming to the area. And then we're also monitoring other organisms on the reef like sponges, which I will talk about later on in the talk. And so a common question that I get is, where do our corals come from? So historically, our largest coral supplier has been Mote Marine Laboratory. And they do some really cool experiments behind their corals to make sure that the corals that we're putting out have the highest chance of survival. And as a matter of fact, most of our partners that we get corals, that's kind of their strategy, but they're doing it in different ways. So Mote Marine will actually take corals and they will put them in experiments that have increased temperature and decreased pH to levels that they anticipate will be on the reef 20, 30, 40 years from now. And it's only the genetic strains that survive those enhanced conditions they get put back into their propagation pipeline. We've also received corals from the Florida Aquarium, and the corals we get from them are what we call sexual recruits. So they have adult colonies that they went out onto the reef and they were rescued. Could have been during a bleaching event, could have been in response to a disease outbreak like stony coral tissue loss disease. These adult colonies will spawn in or reproduce in their aquaria up in Tampa, and they will create potentially new what we call genotypes or genetic strains of these corals that have never been field tested before. So they send them to us, we outplant them, and we give them data back on it. We also have been getting corals from Reef Renewal. This is the division that's located here in the US, not in Bonaire, but they took a different approach during the 2023 heat wave, where a lot of practitioners were moving corals from in-water nurseries to land-based systems. Reef Renewal was taking corals from their nursery and moving them to deeper systems or deeper nurseries to try to escape that warmer water. Well, they just didn't have the manpower to move everything. So they left some corals in their nursery, and some of them survived. And so these corals some of them were in like 6 feet of water, really hot water for a really long time, and they survived. So we've been getting coral from them to try to repopulate some of our sites that we saw a lot of mortality after that 2023 warming event. We also work with other restoration practitioners like the FWC and the Reef Institute up in West Palm to get corals. But one new project that I'm excited about is we're getting corals on our own. We have I.CARE corals now. And so this is a project we started almost a year ago, and this is taking advantage of what we call COOs, or corals of opportunity. So these are corals that have become dislodged from the main reef structure, whether that's from an anchor problem or a storm. We go out, we collect these corals, we put them in crates with giant lift bags, and we bring them back to land. And there we use the microfragmenting method that Dee Dee talks a lot about, that Dr. Vaughn created. It's something that's widely used by all of the restoration practitioners. But what we do, and I've got a little video that shows this, is we run it through a tile saw to try to remove most of that really big skeleton. And then we run it through a little bandsaw or diamond saw to get these into smaller pieces. And those smaller pieces we will mount onto pucks, keep them in our land-based system at the Keys Marine Lab for anywhere from 3 to 6 months until they grow to be the size of that pluck. And then we will put them out on the reef in a secure way to where they are attached to that main reef structure, and then we monitor them. And so we're really excited to be able to have some of our own corals that we can add. But the great thing about these is these are old corals. They've just become detached from the reef. So they have experienced the high temperatures of the bleaching events we've had over the past several decades. The cooling event we had back in the early, I believe it was 2010, disease outbreaks that we've had come through. These are strong corals. So no matter which organization we're partnering with, we're really trying to put our best foot forward to make sure that the corals we put out have the highest chance of surviving into the future. Now, we work with a variety of coral species. We've been fortunate enough to outplant about 17 different reef building species. Probably the poster child, the most well-known coral for restoration has been the staghorn coral. We've worked a lot with this guy. This one really suffered mortality during the summer of 2023. It's very susceptible to heat. But these are the corals that we're getting from Reef Renewal, which have survived that heating event. And so we're actually, if you've been outplanting with us in the past, this might look a little weird to you. So we're actually starting to play around with some cement. So we're putting these corals down, a little block of cement, plug in your little 8 to 10 fragments, and you create these things that actually look like crown of thorns starfish. It kind of makes you do a double take underwater. But it's working really well. So you can see here on the right, this is a 1-month picture. If you look really, really closely, you can see that the coral is already starting to overgrow that cement, which is really exciting, and it's really fast growth. We also work a lot with the elkhorn coral. This is the sister species to the staghorn, but we grow them on pucks and then put them out either with a 2-part epoxy or we can use that cement and we can watch them grow. And we've also worked with a lot of different bouldering coral species, from brain corals to star corals to starlit corals. we've been able to work with a lot, and a lot of the diversity is coming from those coups that we're going out and collecting. When we put these guys on the reef, we use something called the reskinning method. So we're taking advantage of the dead coral heads that we have on the reef. We go out, we scrub these coral heads, we put corals that all came from the same parent colony on a coral head, and then as they grow, they're actually growing new tissue over the top of that skeleton. So they're growing much faster because they don't have to create their own skeleton, and they can fuse to create a larger colony in a fraction of the time. And so when we're out planting these corals, we are trying to put several from the same genetic strain, from that same parent colony, all together in a group. And so I do have a quick time series. So this is some of our Acropora palmata, our elkhorn coral. Put them out on outplant day. This is, I believe, about a month later. And then this is 12 months later and 18 months later. So you can really see how fast these guys can grow. And once you get them out and outplanted and they fuse, they make that nice solid base and then start to branch up. And so these are definitely some of my favorites. So another really exciting area that we've kind of gotten into here recently is sponge restoration. So I do want to talk just a little bit about this program because this is another way that divers can get involved with restoring our reef. And so I am not a sponge ecologist, but I have learned a lot about sponges from a wonderful lady who works for us. Her name is Dr. Bobby Renfro Price. We call her Sponge Bobby, very appropriately named. But she's taught me a lot about sponges. So sponges are really important for the reef as well. They can help to stabilize structure by helping to cement or glue together portions of the reef that are falling apart. And they can also provide that glue for corals to be stable. So this is actually one of our coral outplants with a sponge that has intertwined. And if these corals start to break, these sponges will actually help secure them to the reef and they'll start to create new colonies. I think it's a common misconception that all sponges compete with corals. There's only about 2 or 3 sponge species that do compete. Sponges provide a lot of other ecological resources to the reef. By filtering water, they can be food resources for a lot of organisms. And if you ever were to break into a sponge, there are hundreds of organisms that live inside them. So a lot of the times the snapping that you're hearing underwater, those are coming from snapping shrimp that live inside some of our sponges. And so we started out a program in 2021 with Bobby when she was doing her graduate research with Florida State. We kind of had this question of, can you restore sponges? Can you transplant a sponge? And nobody had really ever done this before, especially in the Caribbean. It's been done on hard bottom sponges that are found in the Florida Bay, but never on the reef. And so it's cool to see the evolution of this program. And we have to give a shout out to our funding sources. The Moat Protect Our Reefs program were really the organization that thought we were not completely crazy and has been funding these different projects through time to see whether or not we can pull this off. And then it was picked up by a state wildlife grant through Florida Fish and Wildlife. But we started off to see, can you harvest sponges the same way that you do a coral? Will they grow once you've transplanted them? Can you use recreational divers? It turns out you can. They grow really well. And a lot of the sponges that we have put out, you can't tell if they're transplanted or not. They look like their wild counterparts, which is really great. So then we had another question of, can you create a sponge nursery? How will they grow? Which species can you work with? How much maintenance does it take? And so we had a project where we put sponges in the nursery, and recreational divers went out, helped us collect these sponges, helped us run all these different treatments where we had these block structures on the bottom where we cable tied the sponges to these little PVC pipes. We had the traditional coral tree where they would hang from a monofilament on a PVC tree. And then we also had some where they were strapped on top of little pucks like we grow our bouldering corals. And we found that for the most part, the sponges like the trees. whether it's the puck or hanging from the monofilament, and that there are certain species, specifically your rope sponges, that really like to grow in these environments, which is great because those are the ones that we've been mostly focusing on for our restoration work. After the heating event of 2023, we found that the sponges that we had outplanted, as well as the sponges in the nursery, didn't seem to respond to the thermal stress the way that corals did. But we do know from other areas in the Caribbean that some sponges can actually bleach. They have a very similar symbiotic relationship as corals do with those little algal cells inside their polyps that help give sponges that darker color. So this bottom photo here, you can see a healthy sponge on the right and a bleached sponge on the left. And so we just finished a project where we tried to transplant these sponges during the hottest period of the month, which really the motivation for this was to provide something for our divers to do, to still give back to the reef, help rebuild the reef, help understand what's going on the reef during those hottest months of the summer when we can't move corals, and still answer a really important question. So in January 2025, we were able to bring Dr. Bobby on as a full-time postdoc. And so she is expanding our sponge restoration program. And we are actually going to start as of May 8th. We're going to be doing a monthly sponge restoration dive with our recreational divers, where divers can come out and be a part of learning all about sponges. Another really awesome event that we do, it's coming up next weekend. Every year, I.CARE does a trash derby. So we have an event where teams, whether they are on dive boats, on a private boat, or doing this by land, they come out and they pick up trash competitively and clean up our marine environments. We have weigh-in stations throughout the Keys where teams will bring their debris, and it's a competition. We've got cash prizes for all of the teams. But for those of you that are diving, every year we get grant funding that will pay for you to come and dive with our operators, come out, help us clean up our marine ecosystems for free. Then on the last day, that Sunday, we do a big festival at Founders Park. There's music, tons of vendors, lots of food. It's a really fun time, family friendly. We'd love to see everybody there. If you are around next week, we would love to have you. If not, keep this on your calendar for next year's. We always try to do it the first weekend of May. So lots of different ways that divers can get involved with the activities that we're doing here at I.CARE. We have all of our coral restoration dives and maintenance dives. We're kickstarting our sponge restoration program. We also will run workshops at the Keys Marine Lab for anybody that's interested in coming and helping us to fragment those corals of opportunity. If you want to feed corals, help us scrub tanks, we are always looking for volunteers to come and help us do that. To stay up to speed on what we've got going on, you can follow us on social media at iCareAboutCoral, or you can visit our website at icareaboutcoral.org and sign up for our newsletter. We give constant updates about all of the different projects that we're doing, so it's a really great way to stay involved. So here is our information, my and Mike's contact information, and that's all I've got for you. So if you guys have any questions for, I think, either me or Dee Dee, be happy to take them.
I thank you. This was really a lot of information from both of you, and it really shows what we can do, not only as divers, but just as the general public, and what they can do to help with coral restoration, whether it be the land base, whether they're living in the middle of, Texas. They can, what they do in their active daily activity, reducing their carbon footprint, it all goes on. It's all part of trying to save the reef.